Hi everyone, welcome to Tech Down Over. Today, another special show, another special guest. He's been on before, he's a good friend of ours. And joining us, co-host, is Jeff Blanchard, good friend too. Hey Jeff, how you doing?
Good, thank you, Rick. I must admit, I haven't been catching up with a lot of our special guests' videos lately because I've been trying to keep off YouTube a little bit lately because it gets a bit addictive. But
It does get addictive. And well, the good thing about Ken, and we'll get to Ken in a second, is if you miss him for a week, you only have to catch up with about maybe 500 videos, and you're good. It's not that bad.
Well, only about 5 videos.
You know, I was on vacation for a week and a half. I came back. I got 45 videos to watch. Wow, it's only gone like 7 days. It was more. And you know what? They're fun. But anyway, let's play the intro and let's get going. And we are back. Hey, there he is, right in the position of power. Ken, how are you? Joining us today is Ken Wheeler from, well, you know him as the Angry Photographer. He's also, I always get the last word. Theoria, how do you say the last word?
Theoria apophasis. Apophatism is a retroduction.
Yep. And that's his YouTube channel. And always good to see you. How have you been?
Hey, I've been fine. Just been working on fixing a few cameras and lenses lately. Also been working hard on my Science and Energy conference lecture in the first week of July.
Now, that's interesting. Now, how'd you get invited to that one?
They were begging me last year to come, and a lot of things came up, but they said everybody really, it sounds weird coming from anybody. They said, everybody really wants you to come. A lot of people say, I thought he might be here this year. And so they all chipped in and bought me a hotel and a plane ticket.
Oh, cool.
And whatnot, and said, you got 90 minutes, want you to bring the ferrocell and that three-dimensional ferrosphere and give a lecture and talk. And
so that got their
the book
attention.
has been insanely popular. Maybe the 8 books I've written, I thought that one would be the book that no one would ever pay attention to because it's on the abstruse field theory and dielectricity and magnetism. It's like, well, who reads that sort of stuff? But
is that your latest version?
The latest version is the 4th edition, which is not out yet. I'm on the 3rd edition.
Which is the other book?
Book, Ancient Greek translation, Ancient Pali translation, real translation of the Dhammapada Pali, translation from Pali to English, and Ancient Greek translation of the works of Plotinus, some of the 9 Enneads on the translation of an untranslatable term that people have suffered with for the past 1,500 years, which is euristostaias, or incommensurability, a completely unknown concept in today's world. The same thing would be found in a magnet. Actually, ancient Greek metaphysics actually applies to magnetism because everybody thinks in very simple terms. A magnet has a north pole and a south pole. Well, if that's the case, you should be able to slice it down a middle and have a north pole and a south pole, but you have point non-specific self-similarity. In other words, if you're able to slice a magnet 1,000,000 times like a hunk of salami, each little thin slice would have a, quote, north pole and a south pole, so there's no definitive location of something in the middle of a magnet that would say, well, here's the North Pole and here's the South Pole. You can separate them out from each other.
Now, who discovered the original concept of magnetism?
As the Greeks did with the lodestone, so that's as far back as we can go. The naturally occurring lodestone where metal would adhere to it, and they've referred to it as a magical rock. And it's also sold as novelties to the really rich people. They could watch pieces of metal cling to it, and it's fascinating.
It is actually. I remember as a kid, magnets was just like the coolest thing ever. It's, it's like, this is so damn cool, and the amount of energy they have and how they can. It's just cool. It's really interesting. And by the way, for all of those who haven't read it, Ken has a very good book on magnetism. It's really pretty fascinating. I think I've got the 3rd edition. So waiting for your 4th. And also you talk a lot about field theory, which is, again, I was an X, and I say X, 3 years of engineering major. I was a chemical engineering major, never finished in engineering, went on to other things. Mm-hmm. But what I found interesting about engineering was, you're right, it was totally atomistic, and I would sit there and go, that doesn't really make sense. I mean, just from a sense point of view, I go, can it really? And that just doesn't. It's too complex, and that's the way I saw it. And then when you started talking about field theory, and I was going, eyes opened up wide, and you really got me totally back interested in studying that. And it's fascinating. Of course, you got me into Tesla, which I started looking more at Tesla, going, wow, this is really fascinating. And And it's funny, the one who didn't become as famous and, didn't get all the stuff, the military, the government stole just about 75-80% of what Tesla did. So most people don't know what he did.
And the person that did that was Donald Trump's uncle.
Yeah, you mentioned that last time. That's interesting. Yeah, interesting. Huh. Yeah, interesting stuff. Was he in the military then?
Might have happened, but it actually did happen. I mean,
yeah,
all the documentation in the world for that. Tesla actually insulted Donald Trump's uncle because, Donald Trump's uncle, and I forget his first name, he was a known physicist. There's actually a few YouTube videos from him in the early 80s before he died, told Tesla something about creating a transmission system using dielectricity, and Tesla told Donald Trump's uncle that he was a foolish idiot because the power loss would be something like on the order of 95%. It would just be completely ignorant to try to work in that manner.
Interesting. Yeah, it's fascinating stuff. It's just fascinating to see if you watch YouTube, the science seems to have gone down the tubes, literally. Basic science, they don't even, facts mean nothing anymore. Carbon dioxide, what's that? Plants don't emit that. That's evil. It's like, hello? What are we doing? So anyway, yeah, we'll probably get censored for this one. But anyway, it's fascinating stuff. How did you wind up what got you into field theory and analyzing it, and did you have any mentors in that, or did you just do a lot of research?
No, I always had been. I was always called a prodigy in ancient languages, and the ancient Greeks were fascinated with fields and how things worked, and instantaneous action at a distance, and the interaction, the interplay between what caused what. And from the premise of the earliest scientists, or what I refer to as the true scientists, the Aristotelian and Platonic scientists, there's no such thing as metaphysics versus physics. Of course, today metaphysics means something like New Age feel-goodism, but original true metaphysics are just opposite sides of the same coin. To understand one, you have to understand the other, and together they have to be a collective, singular system. There's not, metaphysics, which specifically in true denotation via the Pythagoreans and the Platonists simply refers to things that have no Cartesian value. They're non-phenomenal. In other words, the foundation behind, observable phenomena, both material and otherwise. So it's not something...
As above, so below.
Correct.
Yep, so as below, so above. Yeah, I've been reading a lot about Hermeticism recently. It's really fascinating. And some of the concepts, I guess they influenced the Greeks greatly too, and they were the Egyptian Hermeticists and Hermes. That it was Hermes, or Hermes Trismegistra as they called it, and the Greeks were into that. But really, if you start reading some of the Hermetic stuff, it's all about field theory. It's the universe is a field, is one big field, and it's all emanating at all times, and it's there. It's pretty fascinating. The
stuff that nobody reads, there's a tremendous amount of theory and speculation on light. People like, not specifically Plotinus, but other Neoplatonists like Syrianus, Proclus, Numenius, Simplicius, and the rest, thought endlessly on what is the nature of light, how it must work, and using retroductive logic to determine what it is in principle. And today we don't seem to be much more intelligent, other than, of course, creating endless devices based upon electricity, light, and magnetism, but that doesn't mean we actually understand what's going on.
Yeah.
And you can go to the world's largest magnet manufacturer, and they have a frequently asked question page, which is always a question, how does a magnet work? And so we have no idea. It's like, well... You're making billions of dollars of magnets every year, and you don't, no, we don't know.
Yeah, that's interesting. Jeff, you were saying something, I think, earlier.
I think that's gone about. Oh, it was about the magnets. I was going to say something sillier. That's years ago when I worked in retail. One of the tricks that one of the salesmen used to use when selling the old TVs, when they didn't want to sell the cheap loss leader TVs, they would go over and point to the TV and have a magnet on the top and draw all the colour out the top. And it would look so terrible. But the one down below looked really nice. It was the one that they wanted to sell. But the ones that never made any money always had the whole horrible colour. So
that's funny. And you know what they do now? Now they just adjust them so that the colours look like crap on the ones they don't want to sell. And the other ones, they do the colour tuning and they look beautiful. Nothing changes.
We did have at one stage, this was back in the 80s, we had this American salesperson came over, and there was the two TVs that had shocking color at the top and top middle, and the bottom one had really nice color. and he told the customer that the color had drained from the top two down to the bottom. That's why I had more, so they took that one. And I thought, you guys...
Oh, man. Yeah, that reminds me of...
everything they shield them these days against a magnet, so there's very few things that, like speakers and that cause any problems these days.
Funny.
Anyway.
You know, when I first started in the IT world, I was doing field work, going out helping customers, and a lot of times there were hard drives problems. The hard drives then were about yay big. There was a platter about almost a foot high and about probably a foot and a half wide. It was like a washing machine, and they just spun. And you know, one time a rep came out, one of the field guys who actually fixed those things, and he said the hard drives, and he told the customer, he goes, "Oh, you know what it is? It happens. It was spinning too fast, and the letters flew off. So we're putting them back on. They go on little hooks, and then we're good. The magnets keep them in place." And the person's like, "Really? That really happens?" "Oh, absolutely. That's why we try to keep these spinning just at the right speed." And I'm looking at him going, that's a really good line.
In the absolute sense, that actually happens. And I have one of those over here in my drawer. It's a server hard drive. They used to make the platters. We have them, they're aluminum today, and of course they're coated in a ferromagnetic material. But the old ones were tempered glass, and they literally spin for so long, and there's so much heat duress that the coating would fly off. And when you open them up, they're these completely clear glass hard drive platters.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing. But people believe that they were little hooks.
Yes.
You know, but it is true. You're right. And those big platters, they were slow compared to what we have now, and they were just huge. So I remember those days. They were fun. So let's talk about the photo world. Man, all sorts of stuff is happening in cameras and this and that, and all sorts of new cameras, old cameras, whatever. I recently bought the Panasonic G9, and I wasn't going to buy it. And I went, you know, I'm curious. So I bought it anyway. And it does a pretty good job. I would say I used to have the Nikon D750, which I loved. It was a great camera. I just didn't, at that point, I didn't want to invest in Nikon. I still probably don't want to invest. I know you love Nikon, and I thought it was good. But for what we do, which was more video, I didn't care as much. But for photos, the Nikon D750 outshot any Canon I ever had. The picture quality, the sharpness of everything you took, the colors, everything, like you call it, the micro, it just looked great. And on that G9 with some of the Panasonic lenses, or the Leica Panasonic lenses, I was going, you know, that's looking close to my old D750, which isn't that old, like 2 years ago, 2.5 years ago. And I was pretty surprised at the quality of what it could do. Now, if you zoom in real deep, it's not quite as clean as but you know, most people don't zoom in that far, and I was impressed. Panasonic with a Micro Four Thirds coming out with quality like that just shocked me. I didn't think you could get that far with Micro Four Thirds, but they're doing things on a 20 megapixel sensor that was pretty clean. Now, you've talked about Micro Four Thirds, and you even said the perfect camera would be a Micro Four Thirds with like a 24 megapixel sensor. He goes, doesn't exist right now. I think you made that comment, but if they could make it like that, well, it does exist as far as mirrorless, but not Micro Four Thirds. What is it in Micro Four Thirds that makes pictures really come out as well as they do with such a small sensor and even lenses that are pretty small?
The only thing that would be lacking Micro Four Thirds given sensor saturation would be dynamic range. Now, what you just said is not a statement that I actually made in the video. I was referring to two existent sensors. One exists by Sony and the other by Panasonic. They're not for photography. They're used in machinery. They're only 2 megapixel and 4 megapixel, and they have over twice the dynamic range of even a $40,000 phase 100 megapixel. But they're even tinier than a Micro Four Thirds sensor, because a lot of the nonsense that gets repeated on YouTube is that larger sensors equal more light. Like people are talking like a solar cell, and it doesn't work that way. And I tell people, I said, well, here's just one thing. I mean, talk is talk, and anybody could do the math, but the math doesn't mean anything, because some of the key people that are using math to constantly prove that a larger sensor is better and gathers more light are incorrect. They're referring to one thing and not the other. I say, well, just give you one example. People with $18,000 Nikon 800 millimeter lenses, why are they using a $700 Nikon D7200, for example, or they could even use, which they wouldn't because there's no lenses for that, a Sony 24 megapixel crop sensor cameras, because the amount of translational information there is so high. If you take like a 24 megapixel full frame sensor, you actually take that over 2.25. If you're going to crop, say, a little bird off at distance, or, you know, photojournalists, or anybody that actually takes a shot that they crop the heck out of, which basically includes all photojournalists, all wildlife and sports photographers, what you're using instead of a 24 megapixel sensor is 24 megapixels over 2.25, i.e. a crop sensor or smaller, which is a 12 megapixel sensor. So you are using, on that 24 megapixel full frame, a effective 12 megapixel sensor, since the image that you're cropping to is DX or smaller, which is most often the case, almost always in wildlife, but to a great degree in photojournalism and sports action as well.
Somebody asked me the other day, and I really didn't have an answer for it. I went, not sure. You probably know this. Are our sensors now better than film was, or are they equal or worse?
I'm trying to remember the exact figure, like even a 4x5 black and white 100 grain Fujifilm negative is got, what is it? 1.8 times as much information as a 24 megapixel full frame equivalent output.
Really?
I can't remember the exact.
That's still quite a bit
but yeah,
more.
far better than film. And I wasted most of my life with my hands and, you know, cancer-causing chemicals and sitting in the dark room while it's sunny outside. And I'll just never go back to film. And Fujifilm just recently dropped a bunch of their film, and they're getting rid of all of their paper. No more paper from Fujifilm.
Interesting.
It's just over with. But nothing on this earth beats 4x5 chrome or black and white or 8x10.
So it did have that kind of resolution.
Heavy.
It had that kind of depth of information.
Back in the days of photography school, it was $1 a sheet. That's the cheapest you get 4x5 chrome, which is one of the most magical things on earth. Most people have never held up a 4x5 chrome, but now I think it averages $25 a sheet or something like that. So you better get the exposure right.
Wow, that's amazing.
It's $25 a sheet.
Actually, those Fujifilm looks that they have are pretty amazing. When they do the film looks, or their film, what do they call them? Not looks. It had a different word, like effects or whatever. They're pretty amazing. They look pretty nice on when they take pictures with them.
It's confirmed that Fujifilm this September in Photokina is going to announce the camera that I've been talking about for the past few months, which is a very cheap rangefinder medium format. It'll have the same sensor as the GFX. It should be between $3,500 and $3,800, which is just insanely cheap for a medium format.
Yeah. Yeah. How do you like the new Fuji?
The GFX, they actually have it right here. I've been using it a lot. I was able to get it for a couple weeks before it actually came out and borrow it, not from Fujifilm, but from another place. And it's wonderful. It's just like a mini DSLR. The shutter has a 5-point spring suspension.
Oh, interesting.
It sounds like absolutely nothing at all. It's so incredibly quiet.
That's pretty good. You have the other one too. The new. It's not an XT2. It's what's it called? The new version of it, or.
That's it. The XH1.
X8. Yeah.
That's the camera.
Someone
sent me a dead XT2, and it took me about 3 hours to take apart and another 3 hours to Dremel tool all the anodized paint off of it. So,
you made a skeleton out of that one, right?
Yeah. I thought I'd glue the LCD on the back.
I may send you my remaining XT2 because I think there's a problem with the. It's got to be a problem with probably a connector, I think, because both the LCD and the viewfinder show half the screen and the other half is sort of full of other garbage, and then it kind of switches and it goes well, then it goes bad again. That's why I think it's a connector issue. But I haven't sent it in for repair yet. I'm not sure if I'm under insurance yet. I got to check. I've had them about a year and a half.
If it's EVF and LCD,
it's both.
Mainboard.
It's both.
If it's both? Okay.
Yeah, the EVF and the LCD, both.
Because those have two totally different connectors. There's 9
really?
plastic cable connectors in the mainboard on the XT2.
Great. I get it on both. And at first, it was perfect. And all of a sudden, that's the one I've never even used other than maybe just testing it once or twice when I got it out the box. And then that one never got used. The other one I never had a problem with. But this one, we sold it, came back 5 days later, and it just wouldn't work. I went, I could have sworn it went. It may have gone out well and got broken out there, and it came back. I have no way of proving it, so we took it back. But it was just sort of, And other than that, it worked fine. It takes good pictures. The pictures look good when you take them. It just you can't see what you're really taking well on the EVF or the viewfinder. So it's just sort of an interesting thing.
It's a new feature you found on the camera, Rick.
Yeah, split view.
Split view. Let me know. I can have someone help you fix that for nothing or next to nothing.
Oh, okay. I'll send you a note on that. I can send you out everything. But no, that sounds good, because half the time when you send out cameras now, they don't even bother fixing them. They go, no, it's not repairable. Yeah.
We've reached the limitation now that I get frustrated, and everybody wants to talk about how great a camera is. Apparently, everybody today is a photographer shooting at the bottom of caves in the middle of the night. I mean, they don't care actually how the camera. I want to shoot at 10,000 ISO, 100,000 ISO in the middle of the dark, and take a picture of a coal miner at the bottom of a well. And I just, I got to have a camera that performs like that. It's like, okay, really?
I don't get it. It's funny. Everybody worries about, well, does the camera shoot well in low light? Well, how low do you want it? Like off, no light, in a vacuum. Yeah, it does great. You're right. Who shoots in that really all the time? Very few people. And so all camera manufacturers are trying to gear every camera to be able to shoot in pitch black. Hello? Am I missing
There's only
something?
so many ways you can cook silicone wafer lithography. The latest two things, A, are stack sensor, like on the Sony A9 for really fast read times. The other thing is BSI, backside illuminator, where they actually takes the wiring structure and put it underneath the photoreceptors, but that only gives you a stop and a half better dynamic range, which is wonderful, but basically invisible unless you're shooting at crazy high ISO. So the next thing, of course, will be curve sensors, and then there'll be the RGBW sensors, and then, of course, the adaptive resistance sensors, where they'll actually max out at saturation, so you have basically unlimited dynamic range. There'll be no such thing as highlight clipping anymore, and that'll make everybody really happy.
Yeah. What's RGBW? What's the W?
They invented by Kodak in 2007 as a concept. It's a trans photo site. Again, no laughs there. Red, green, blue, and white, which means it will receive everything, and it will be interpolated for the image processing. I forget exactly how that works, but it has nearly, 2 or 3 stops better dynamic range. It was so much better in low light.
Interesting.
Kodak thought of that up.
It's funny because I remember it's probably different. I mean, we had a TV, a Sharp Quatron before, and it was RGB, and I forgot what yellow is. It had yellow, so it had a yellow pixel with the red, green, blue, and it gave it a much warmer tone. It really looked nice. It was very clean, and of course that was great new technology. And now Sharp kind of gone.
I remember how it works. Instead of the microfilter, the color filter array, the CFA that sits over top, so it's bare array or X-trans is just literally a pile of filters in whatever configuration over top of the sensor. Otherwise, it'd be a monochrome sensor. It'd just see light only. It wouldn't see any color. Yeah. The white photo site is placed in a place that is interpolated through the algorithm once the signal is received, that it's near X color photo site that is able to determine that, so it makes it a much brighter image for low light performance and slightly better dynamic range.
Interesting. That's coming.
Yeah, there's always has to be new junk out. I mean, if they just keep rolling out the same stuff, then everybody's just going to keep what they've already got.
Jeff?
And have you had a look at the Sony A7 III, or what are your thoughts on that?
I'm trying to get my hands on it. I know because of the pixel pitch being right at the Nikon D750, and combined with the fact that it'd be a BSI sensor, and even the images I've seen, even without seeing those images, I know the performance will be incredible. There have been 3 reports of the camera overheating so far in videos out there on YouTube, so apparently they haven't tackled that problem.
Is that in video? In video?
In video, correct, right, not photography. But yeah, $2,000. Like I said, even without having the camera in hand, knowing that it's a BSI sensor with the huge eyeballs on it, that it'll even be it should be right about 15% better performance than even the Nikon D750, which is incredible. Yeah. So it'll have wonderful saturation, incredible dynamic range. It's just, no matter what I think or don't think about Sony, I mean, I know the output on the camera will be incredible even before I get my hands on it.
Actually, what Sony is there for right now, I think, is they're the disruptor. They just disrupt everybody. They're coming out with interesting stuff. The ergonomics on Sony fairly much suck. They're not that good. If you look at a Canon, Nikon, or Panasonic, they're way better on ergonomics. But they do give nice output. Now, you played with the A9. I have the A9. I bought it at the end of last year, and I like the A9. It's not bad. Ergonomics aren't great. They're okay. But the the quality of pictures it takes and video, I haven't had no overheating issues with the video. I think you didn't have any heating problems either, no matter what you tried. It's a nice camera. It does. We buy them more for video, so I can't say we're buying it for photography per se, but it shoots great video. So from that point of view, we're pretty happy. The focus is amazing on that stuff. I'm not a big fan of Canon's dual pixel autofocus. I don't think you are either, actually, of the dual pixel autofocus. I don't find it great. I find it okay. The Sony autofocus is fast. It's fast in video. Well, it's also fast in pictures, but if you're trying to do tracking, it's pretty darn fast, and it doesn't lose a lot of shots to bad focus. We also got the A7R III, and again, good video, not bad picture, 42 megapixels. It's almost like a medium format camera. It's not bad. The quality of pictures is good. Colors are getting a lot better. Their color science is actually becoming more like Canon or Fuji. They're closer. They're not there yet, but they're definitely getting closer. I think they're doing some work to make everything look more natural rather than so either bluish or whatever they had. Same problem Panasonic has. They're getting better, but they're still not 100% there yet. Who do you think has the best color science right now?
When you're shooting raw, it doesn't really matter.
Okay. Yeah.
I noticed also too in the Sony A9 brochure, several other people noticed that, and I did not notice that when I was testing it, is in the back of the manual for the Sony A9. I forget which series of lenses it is, but the wonderful, and Sony of course dominates everybody for eye autofocus, but Sony lists specifically of all their lenses that you can stick on the A9, that it's almost half and half. It's like, well, these lenses perform wonderfully on the A9, but you get much inferior performance of autofocus, and specifically eye autofocus if you use that other set.
Yeah.
Sony lenses, and a lot of those are older, fast Sony lenses, including like their relatively new, I forget how many millimeters it is, 500 or 600 millimeter lens.
Oh, that brand new one? Yeah. I thought it was 400, but I may be wrong. They have a 5 now?
No, it's an older one. It's been out for 3 or 4 years. I forget which one it is. Sorry about that.
Yeah. A lot
the Sony A9 was impressive, but you're right. I mean, the ergonomics are absolutely horrible. I mean, they're just unbelievable. I mean, it tore the skin off my middle finger knuckle. The ergonomics are like pouring through a dictionary written by a cross-eyed person, and just everything is rushed to market. It's like wham, bam, boom. If there's a problem with it, we'll fix it in 9 months.
Yeah, I know.
Well, with a new model, not fix it, but we'll fix it. Yeah, I'd love to have the new Sony A7 III, but I still can't even get my hands on one for testing. They're
not out there. I guess everybody and their mother has one, and I don't know. They've been giving it out to people who are very well known on YouTube who are pro Sony, and I think that's what's going on. So
someone made a really famous review of it and said it had twice the image performance as so-and-so camera. But I mean, there's 36 different attributes of image performance, so one-stop better dynamic range is invisible to even the most acute eye in printing out an 8x10. So when we say we have one-stop better performance, which is undeniable, I mean, those huge photo sites and a BSI sensor, the A7 III is just going to spit out incredible, beautiful, great saturation and much better dynamic range and much better low light. But,
so you think that's closer to what the D750 had?
Even better, yeah.
Even
absolutely.
Better? Okay.
Oh, yeah, much better. Yeah, the D750 is not a backside illuminated sensor.
You know, I had the D750 and the D810, and the D810 was nice, but I thought the D750 was better. And I never had one of the cameras that had a problem. I got lucky. I had no recalls or anything on it. It just worked. I had 2 of them, and both of them didn't have a problem. But the D810 I liked, but it was very heavy, and I don't know, the pictures looked good, but I thought they looked better on the D750. And what do you think? You've had both.
Mm-hmm. I got rid of my D810. D810 is almost infamous for having lens calibration issues, and the autofocus is so-so. D750 was superior, but now the D850 gray market, I think, is going for $1,200, which is just insanely cheap.
For a D850? Oh man.
Yeah, that's ridiculous.
Isn't it new? It's about $3,200, right?
Yeah, but no one's paying that now. I mean, a used one, $1,200, and you find a gray market between $1,200 and $1,300.
Really? What happened on it? Is it
superseded by the D850, and everybody's just dumping them in bulk on eBay?
Wow, interesting. I thought you loved the D850. It was good, wasn't it? Or is it?
Oh yeah, I love it. I mean, I absolutely love it. It's a bit too expensive, and you buy the vertical grip and the charger and the batteries.
Yeah, $4,000. You're at $4,000 again. Yep.
Oh yeah, which will be more than the medium format rangefinder that Fuji comes out with. They're going to announce in Photokina this year.
Interesting. Wow.
Yeah, and that $4,000 turns into about $6,500 here. So it's quite.
No, you could get some of the cheap lenses. Actually, Fujifilm, I have all the GFX lenses. They're really tiny. They're actually tinier than many of the Fuji X series lenses. Like they're 63 millimeter, the 45, and the 23. They're not that big. Yeah, the other ones are huge, and I have, but that's the camera everybody's been looking for. And the GFX was already incredibly inexpensive compared to like a Mamiya Leaf or a Pentax Z. A Mamiya Leaf almost bought one at one point. I mean, you're talking about $30,000, and the lenses are insanely expensive, and it's so much better than both of those put together. And
I've
as
been
a cheap
watching
rangefinder, that's going to be really cheap.
I've been watching some interviews with some Hasselblad people, and Hasselblad's trying to make their way back to. I think they've suffered quite a bit in sales in the past few years, and they have a new one. I forgot the model number. And it can, they said, I think it's a 100 megapixel sensor or something like that.
It's a 50 uses the same sensor as the GFX, different micro lens designs. The X1D Hasselblad.
Mm-hmm. That's it,
actually,
X1D,
if you've ever watched the camera stores reviews, they everything they review is just they love it. They're so happy, cheerful. All Canadians are so happy, and they reviewed the X1D and they're like, "Oh my God, this camera's horrible. It sucks. Yep. It's just horrible." Amazingly enough, I don't know how they could do that. Of course, Hasselblad doesn't actually exist anymore. It's just a name bought out by the Chinese. Is that their lenses have polygonal bokeh and octagonal bokeh. There's no such thing as getting a nice round background bokeh on the camera. And it originally shipped with a lot of bugs. And a product photographer who shoots both and owns both and just recently got rid of the Hasselblad did a really brilliant review and talking about all the countless issues he has with the X1D. When you look at it, it's the most sexy camera in the world. It's tiny and slim.
Yeah.
And it's like, wow, this is medium format and it's a Hasselblad. I mean, just look at this thing. But, the reality of that is apparently skin deep.
I didn't realize it got acquired. So it's not, I think it was a Swedish company, right?
Right, DJI, who's also owned by the Chinese.
Interesting. I did not know. Oh, man, every time you turn around.
It's like Singer sewing machines. Remember them? I mean, they made gold, and they had troubles, and then the Chinese bought them.
I didn't know that either. Okay. I thought Singer was around, but they weren't doing much. I don't know how many people sew anymore like they used to, but that's interesting.
I do, but not anymore.
Yeah. Huh.
And when I do so, it's to sew a button on, and it's usually easier to get the thread than having a machine do it. And by the time you set up a machine, you've done it. So
make my own skydiving suits are too expensive. I'm like, well, the heck with this. I know how to sew. I'll make my own jumpsuit for skydiving.
Many talents, Ken. A sewer as well. So.
Oh, yeah. Professional leather restoration, too. Everybody keeps commenting on that. I make all these videos on how to restore old leather.
So let me guess. When you learned, after you did skydiving, you became a scuba diver. Is that it when you fell into the ocean after skydiving and you just kind of adapted quickly? Or
Actually, I did both at the same time. I did a lot of cave diving. I had oxygen decompression tanks, an underwater scooter. And,
now that must be cool. That's got to be cool.
So dangerous. And oddly enough, there's not many cave diving instructors. Half of them are really fat, even fatter than I am. It's like, why is it a fat guy is underwater in really tight spaces, and these are instructors? That doesn't make any sense. But it's so much fun. In Florida, it's so clear. You go back, maybe 1,000 feet or so, and there'd be these huge domed rooms, maybe 150 feet tall. And to take a break, since you can't actually rest in the bottom, it's so silty. There's literally like 10 feet of silt, and you could, just sink into it into infinity. And if you silt it up, then it makes the cave muddy, and you have to feel your way out. As to rest, you actually hang from the ceiling. So to take a break, I'd hang from the ceiling, and what cave divers use is Snicker bars, since they don't melt in the water or get damaged. And you just take your regulator out and stick in a Snickers bar and chomp on it, and you just hang upside down from the ceiling at 100 feet up like a bat chewing on a Snickers bar.
Wow. And it satisfies you too. So
it's very strange.
That's fun, is it? That's fun, is it?
I don't know. When you're young and stupid, the dangerous sort of, cool stuff, then you get older, like, oh, Jesus, I could have died so many times.
Where were you living then? Where were you diving?
Daytona Beach was diving in High Springs, Little Ear, Devil's Eye, Devil's Ear. There's a bunch of caves there near High Springs.
That's pretty cool. All you needed was a nice, camera with low light. You'd be made, right?
I had a couple Nikonos, but they kept leaking on me.
Interesting.
Poor camera design.
Well, Ken, we are just about out of time. Hey, if anybody wants to get a hold of you, what's the best way to get a hold of you? Not with hate mail, guys, but just for real purposes. Hey, by the way, Harold, have we had anybody on? No. Oh, we haven't had the haters today. Nobody followed us.
No haters? Oh.
We're good. Maybe we didn't.
I'm a nice guy. I think it's just my personality, the fact that I'm kind of crass and bald.
You know what it is? You know what I think it really is? Nobody can make fun of themselves anymore. Everybody's so sensitive about everything. And you just go, look, just laugh. Half the time you have me cracking up on the floor, and most people go, that was very insulting. It's not insulting. It's get over it. It's like, people.
I can make 1,000 videos about petting fuzzy bunny rabbits and still get hate mail.
That's the thing. When you reach so many people, there's bound to be that. But it's always good to have as well, though. You can't have like you were just saying before. Everything can't be lovey-dovey, and that. So somebody's got to disagree with you. And as I said, at least you've got the audience. You've got enough people to disagree with you.
But the problem nowadays, Jeff, is that. But the problem nowadays, Jeff, is that when they disagree with you, they're crazy. They're insane. They're nasty, and you don't know what they're going to do. There's a lot of kooks out there. So
yeah, one of the days, that even when they put their own names down, it seems to have gone by the wayside. That just go really strange. Whereas in the past, you just would never do things like that. So
the peeps that hate me the most, and it's you look at this graph. I got a graph in my brain, and it's the Germans, and I'm half German. The Germans hate me the most, but the most hate I get are from Australians. The Australians really hate me for some reason. I don't know why, but. I love Australians. I would love to visit there. So. Huh? What?
I said I don't hate your work. I love your work. Okay.
No, I didn't mean you.
And most
Australians Australians hate me so much.
But it's weird because most Australians have a pretty good sense of humor. They're rather irreverent. So I don't know why. I don't get it. Yeah.
I think I'm just like sandpaper underwear. Nobody, just rub people the wrong way.
I just wish I could be a bit like just put some things up that just really. And entertain me. Like I know just ages ago, you was just going along the car and you just saw this automobile next to you that was covered in all these badges, and you had to just take a picture of that and just laugh for 3 minutes. Look at that! I just thought, I wish you should do that with your camera, but you do. That's why I think people should do that a bit more. But just take what's going on in life, and it was just fantastic. I think.
Did you get a lot of hate mail from your rant about the people with the doll collections? I started laughing my head off.
I kind of did, yeah. One guy says he hates me, but his baby loves listening to me. So when the baby gets upset or colicky or angry, whatever, he turns me on and then he leaves the room. Apparently the baby loves me, but he hates me. I was like, seriously? He's like, yeah. I said,
that's funny.
I turn your videos on, then I leave the room, and the baby's quiet.
Mind control. Oh, that's funny. Hey, well, Ken, we'll have you on definitely more than a year ago. Yeah, this has been too long. It's always fun having you on and chatting and seeing what you're up to. And I think I haven't missed too many of your shows. I usually catch almost all of them. I've learned to batch catch them, and I know what, especially the ones that interest me. When you get into I actually like when you get into the magnetism and the fields, and there's always something there that to learn and to enjoy. So those are fun. I don't know how do the average photo people like those?
It's kind of half and half.
Yeah.
A lot of people say I hate photography, but I just tune in for the field theory videos and wait for you to make more of them.
Yeah.
Kind of back and forth the same way.
Yeah.
Love-hate relationship. I mean, I still get like 2 death threats a month, and then I get like at least 100 really vile comments, like, I hope you die some horrible way. And you got to ignore that. I mean, ultimately, it's about 90% good. It's like, I don't like your voice. I think you're pretty fat and ugly. Your voice sucks, but at least you got helpful information. You're not trying to sell me something, so that's why I watch your videos. It's like, well, that's accurate.
You like the backhanded compliments, right?
Yeah, that's exactly. It's okay. At least they're being honest, Someone's being honest. It's like, I hate you, but you gave me some. That's what I see online, too. It's like, I hate that guy. He just sucks. But, man, he recommended a lens, and I bought it, and I really love it. It's so awesome, but I still hate him.
But watch all your videos so they'll have to watch you to hate you. That's the thing.
Howard Stern, right?
That's true, yeah.
Thank you so much.
Oh, we got a comment from who? What'd she say?
Oh, Sarah.
Kangaroos.
Maybe it's a kangaroo who learned to use computers?
Computers.
That's funny. Anyway, Ken, hey, a pleasure having you on again. We'll look forward to seeing you again soon, and just keeping up on all the. I mean, you're already up to like 4,500, 4,700 now. Every time I turn around, it's another 1,000.
4,500 what?
45 videos that you've done.
Oh, 4,700.
700. You know, just a short time ago, you were going, my God, I can't believe I did 4,000, and you're almost at 5.
I don't know how it works.
And you've been busy. You've been traveling more. You've been going back and forth to Florida more, and I don't know how you do it. It's amazing.
No exotic locations. Anybody has the idea to have any money? If you catch me making a video in Iceland or something, then you'll know I have money. I don't have money. People think I do. It's like, oh, you got a pile of lenses. You must be rich. I'm like, no.
Yeah. Actually, we know that if you have a photo hobby, you're not rich. Nobody's rich. We spend all our money on the damn stuff. So,
exactly.
Yep, all for taxes. Yeah. Anyway.
Yeah.
Anyway, well, have a good one. Thanks for coming on, Jeff. We'll see you next week. And for all you folks watching, might as well subscribe. What the heck? And we'll see you next week too. Have a good one. Bye bye. Thanks.
Thanks.
Wow.